seasonal, not year-round, and then what you can do without having prescriptions. So this is all the over-the-counter stuff. If y'all have any more specific questions, you can stop me anytime, or if you want to talk about a prescription medicine, that's fine, but that's not what they're talking about. So, you know, why does somebody get an allergy? You know, so when somebody is allergic, let's say you're allergic to a dog, it's not the dog that's making you sick, it's your body's reaction to the dog that's making you sick. So an allergy is an immune response that makes you sick to something that's usually harmless. So it's a harmless substance, something harmless. So, and why? Well, we have these antibodies. And this is, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. I know people probably don't like science, just real quick, and then we'll move on. So we have antibodies. Antibodies are usually good things. They fight off infections. When you get a vaccine, you build up antibodies to fight off infections. Well, we have one antibody that's called IgE. And IgE is, you know, when people have a lot of it, it was because they fight parasites. So if you have a lot of allergies, your ancestors probably had a good immune response to parasites. But you know, now in the United States, and you know, we don't have problems with parasites, very rarely. But you still have, you know, you still may have IgE in your blood. So the IgE found a new function, and that's just a picture of what an antibody looks like. So this is kind of a tough slide to see, but the next one will show a little bit better. But when you have an IgE, the difference in this antibody is that the IgE lives on a cell. Most antibodies are free-floating. They don't live on anything. So if you can see the blue thing, that's the IgE, and that this here is the cell. So the antibody lives on the cell, which makes it different than the other antibodies. So this is a little bit better picture, or darker. So you see here the antibodies, it lives on a cell. And then if you breathe in cedar, oak, whatever, then that cell breaks open and it releases histamine and a lot of other stuff. And the histamine will go to different, like your blood vessels, and it makes your blood vessels in your nose and your sinuses more leaky. So they leak fluid out, they swell, and you get a runny nose, congestion, sneezing. You know, you have cells in your lungs, it can cause asthma, in your skin, it can cause eczema. So again, an allergy is you're having a reaction to something that's usually harmless because the immune response that certain people genetically prone to having allergies make, that immune response involves a cell that breaks open and releases histamine. People that don't have allergies, their antibodies will attack the pollen, but they're free floating, they're not living on the cell, so you don't notice anything. So I think that's it for the science. So some of the symptoms of allergies, which if you have them, you know, runny nose, sneezing, a lot of mucus, you itch, not just your nose, but your eyes can itch, and some people get real congested and real stuffy, and then you can cough and wheeze. So some people have a lot of drainage, some people have a lot of stuffiness, you know, it just depends on the person. People, you know, during the season, when people have a lot of allergies, during cedar or oak, etc., it can increase your chances of getting conjunctivitis, which is, if it's allergic conjunctivitis, just allergies in your eyes, but people rub their eyes and they can get infected, so then you get conjunctivitis, the infection. You can get more sinus infections, ear infections, asthma. Some people can just cough all season. All right, so, you know, allergies, most people, like you said in the back that you were unsympathetic for it, but, you know, allergies can be associated with a lot of problems, especially in kids. They can decrease their concentration and focus, makes them limit their activities, especially outdoor activities. Your decision making can decrease. It affects your hand-eye coordination, your memory. You're more irritable, more tired, and then it's associated with a lot of missed productivity, days of school and days of work that are missed. And they notice more car accidents and more work-related injuries when people's allergies are acting up. So people with allergies, I don't know if you notice, but you can get what they call allergic shiners. Those are circles under the eyes. And the reason you get circles under the eyes is because all your fluid drains from back to your heart. So all the fluid. And if your nose is congested or your sinuses are congested, well, it's like having a plug in the pipe. So it drains more slowly, so then this is fluid that's kind of building up under the eyes. This is what they call the allergic salute, and a lot of times you'll see it in kids. They go like this all the time, and then they get a crease. I don't know if you can see that crease on the nose here. So, and it can cause other deformities like overbites and underbites in your teeth. So we'll have dentists that send us people saying there's something wrong with this kid's teeth. They're all, his gum formation is out of whack, and so they'll send them to allergists to see if they're allergic to something. So there's two types of allergies. There's perennial, meaning year-round, and if you have year-round allergies, it's usually something inside, either a pet or dust mites. Unless you live in a moldy area, then it could be mold, because they can be outside all year round. But we're not going to talk about today is seasonal allergies, and that's when you get problems about the same time every year. And those are usually related to the green things, trees, grasses, or weeds. So if you look in San Antonio, if you look in the middle, actually I like to go through the calendar school year because that's how, I have 6 kids, so everything goes to the school year. So if you look in the fall, like August, September, October, if you look in the yellow, it's usually ragweed or something called cedar elm or fall elm. It's not mountain cedar, it's a type of elm tree. And so if your symptoms are primarily in the fall, it could be one of those two things. The main one is in the middle, the red one, and that's mountain cedar, and that's usually around December, January to about mid-February. And then if you go to the spring, that's all the trees, and oak's the biggest one. But we'll talk a little bit about all of them just briefly. So if you look at the trees, we're kind of unique. Most places in the United States, the trees are in the spring. But we have a fall elm, again, that's August through October, and then we have cedar. Now, like right now, if you look at the back of the sports pages, or if you listen to the pollen count, they're saying there's a little bit of juniper out there. Now, mountain cedar is actually a juniper. And when they say juniper, they may not really be talking about juniper. They might be talking about a cedar or a cypress tree. It's really weird, but anything that says cedar, cypress, or juniper are all going to cross-react, so they're all going to be a little bit similar. So right now we're getting something in mid-November, late November, and they're just starting to pick up the cypress and redberry cedar. They call it juniper. So there'll be people that get sick before cedar even hits. Then mountain cedar usually starts around Christmas time, New Year's, but it just depends. You need some cold northern winds to come in to break open the pollen and send it in. And it'll go till about mid-February. If your symptoms are more in February, late February, or early March, usually before spring break, it could be ash or elm. But then the big one in the spring is oak, and that's usually starts around spring break. I just know because I'm trying to think when I go on vacation and everybody's like, crap, I was out of town when everybody got sick. So anyway, because ours is seasonal. If the season's over, then they don't come in. So if you're not in town, then you lose the business. So anyway, so then oak is usually March, April, and then by fiesta time, oak's usually gone and pecan's starting. And a lot of times pecan's highest right when the King William Festival is going on, and that's tons of old big pecan trees, and that's usually April, May. Then if you look at the weeds, again, those are August through October. So again, just another way to look at it, August through October, ragweed or elm tree, November, December, the cypress or cedar trees, December through February, mountain cedar, which is, we're going to talk about a little bit more. February through March is ash or elm, oak trees in March, April, and then pecans, April, May. So what we're going to try to talk about is how do we minimize your symptoms not to treat it. I mean, you can ask me about treatment after if you want to, or stop me at any time. But I'm trying to see what you can do to try to prevent yourself from being so sick. So what I usually tell people to do is either look at the back of the sports page if you get the newspaper, or listen to the pollen count. And because Dr. Paul Ratner does it, and he usually puts it out there, and you can check it online as well. And during that time, you want to keep all your windows and doors closed of your house, and in your car, keep the windows closed. Usually the pollen counts are highest between 5 and 10 in the morning. However, the trees and the grasses can be high in the evenings, like dusk. So if you're better off, just to be on the safe side, not going out early in the morning and then when the sun's about to set. That's usually the two highest times. If you're not too embarrassed, you can wear a face mask when you do or cut the yard or cut the grass or whatever, if you're going to be doing that, to try to prevent you from breathing in the pollen. If you're outside and you come in, I used to tell people, take a shower, rinse your hair out, and then change your clothes to try to get all the pollen off. If you have symptoms of eye allergies, and a lot of times oak will cause a lot of eye itching, then I tell people to get some like sterile salt water and put it in the refrigerator, and when they come in, just rinse your eyes out with that. Okay, so yeah, and then when you get home, you can rinse your nose out with saline as well, and then this talks about the cool eyes, the cool rinses for your eyes. So nowadays, you can get a lot of the stuff that used to be prescription over the counter. So the nose sprays that are out there are Flonase, Nasacort, and Rhinocort. Rhinocort, the third one, they got bought out or promoted by Zyrtec. So the box looks the same as a Zyrtec pill. So these are nasal steroids. These try to prevent you from getting sick, but you have to be on them for about a week at least before the pollen hits. If you use it when you're already sick, especially if cedar's very high, it's like too late by that point. I mean, it might help some if your symptoms are mild, but if they're severe, it's not going to help. So, and then there's eye drops called Zatador and Aloe. This used to be prescription, and they're the exact same medicine. They're just different names for them if you have eye symptoms. So typically, oh yeah. So I'll go back to the medicines in a second. So typically what we do is Thanksgiving through Valentine's Day. I mean, that's pretty easy to remember. Thanksgiving through Valentine's Day, start the nose spray. And if you have eye symptoms, start the eye drops, because you don't know when it's going to hit. Now, I will tell you, if the way the weather is, it's been warmer. This is like the warmest 2016 has been the hottest year on record and all that. So some of these things are getting moved later, because again, you need cool air, cold air for the cedar to pollinate. So things that used to start in like maybe around early December, now are mid to late December. So you may be starting these things a little bit early, but it's better to be early than late. So what I usually have people do is start the sprays. Any one of these three, these are over the counter, you don't need a prescription. Around Thanksgiving, which is coming up, and then you take it all the way till Valentine's Day. If you have eye symptoms, you start one of these eye drops now and take them all the way. So these things don't really dry you out. What I do with the antihistamines, which you can get over the counter now, and they have generic, which are very cheap, Claritin, Zyrtec, Allegra. I'll talk to you a little bit more about these, but I have people usually don't start them too early, because I'm afraid they'll get too dried out. So I usually have them wait till either they get the first symptom, like the very first symptom, or if you read the pollen count and they say, oh, cedar's in the air. As soon as you see it, then you take it every single day, not as you need it. You need to take it every day until Valentine's Day. Because if you stop it and start it, it's like chasing your tail. You're never going to really be able to prevent it. So when you talk about the three, Claritin, Zyrtec, and Allegra, Claritin was the first one, and the makers of Claritin did a really good job marketing. And So it was probably the most popular one. But it doesn't work as well as the other two. I think if you put 100 people and they took it, probably less than half would get better. Now Zyrtec and Allegra, about 2/3 of the people get better with it. Now, so you have to try them to see which one works better for you. Zyrtec makes about 10% of people sleepy, so you'd have to take that at night. And the Allegra doesn't. Not supposed to make you sleepy at all. Now these are once a day, and you take them every day. So and we'll talk about Allegra D and Zyrtec D, etc., but not the Ds. These are just the regular pills you take them every day. So usually it's December through mid-February. And that's just a picture of a cedar tree with all the pollen blowing off. Now, when you're talking about oak is March, April. And y'all all see all the green stuff falling on your car and all that. So what I do for oak is you're going to start the drops and the spray in March all the way through April, and then the pills you'd start around mid-March to the end of April. Now, when you talk about other medications, so there's different allergy medicines. We talked about the sprays, the eye drops, and the antihistamines. Antihistamines work when you're runny, itchy, sneezing, etc. Decongestants are when you're stuffy. There's only 2 decongestants on the market. There used to be a few, but the FDA took them all off. So if you buy a decongestant, there's only 2. One you have to sign for by the pharmacy because you can make speed, the kid or whatever, people can make speed out of it. So you have to sign, they'll only give you like 12 days worth at a time. And the other one is in front of the counter where you can get it and you don't need to sign for the pharmacist. So the one you have to sign for is called pseudoephedrine. So if you talk about Zyrtec D, Allegra D, Claritin D, any of those Ds, D means decongestant, and it's going to have pseudoephedrine. If you can buy it in front of the counter, then it's got phenylephrine. And I tell you this because, it gets confusing. You might buy one medicine and it's really the exact same thing as another one, but they have a different name to it. And if you don't look at the ingredients, you're just wasting your money. So, most people think the pseudoephedrine, the one you sign for, works better. And then the phenylephrine, I like phenylephrine better for myself, but most people like pseudoephedrine. So if you're real stuffy, you can try one of those. However, you have to be careful because it can raise your blood pressure, keep you up at night if you take it late at night, make you irritable, anxious. So you just have to be careful with decongestants. I don't like people to take decongestants every day. So what you would do is, if you're on Allegra, if you're really stuffy, then you can take Allegra D when you're really stuffy, or just add the decongestant at the time. Now they also make decongestant nose sprays, like Afrin, Drixoral, Drixine. And what they do, they work great. They shrink the tissues in your nose. They work great. The problem is, if you use them more than 3 to 5 days, then once it wears off, it makes you more stuffy. So it's like you get a rebound. So I'll have people that are allergic to cedar, and they come in August and they're still sick, and they're only allergic to cedar, and it's because they're hooked on this thing and they hadn't gotten off it, and that's what's making them really stuffy. So if you're really stuffy, you can use it, but you only use it 3 days if you're using it twice a day, or 5 days if you're going to use it once a day. More than that, again, it could make you worse. So if you remember from the beginning, we talked about allergies. Your body releases all these chemicals that cause you to have problems. So with the nose spray and the antihistamines, try to block things before you get sick. The decongestants, they're working after the fact. It's already swollen, and all they're doing is shrinking it temporarily, but it's going to come back. So it's not preventing anything. They're just relieving you of your symptoms. So some of the other medicines that are out there is, if you get a cough, there's something called dextromethorphan, and almost always it'll say DM, dextromethorphan. So the most common decongestant, the most common cough medicine is dextromethorphan. Then you have something called an expectorant. And expectorants, all they do is thin out your mucus. And Mucinex is the most common one. So I have a lot of people that buy Mucinex and they get confused. So if you're buying Mucinex by itself, that's guaiachenous. It just tries to thin out your mucus. There's a DM that has the cough medicine, dextromethorphan. And then if you have D, then that's the one with the decongestant. So you just got to be careful, because some people will take Mucinex D and then an Allergy, and then they're bouncing off the wall because it's 2 decongestants. You just have to be careful and look at all the labels. Everything now, since everything's going generic, you know, I would always look at the parentheses of what the generic name is so that you know what you're dealing with. Because otherwise, again, you spend a lot of money on things that you've already bought that haven't worked for you in the past. So if the medicines aren't enough, you know, then you can decide if you want to go in and get allergy tested. And the testing's not bad, it's the itching afterwards that sometimes is bad. And so what we do is we put drops on you, make little scratches, and then if you're positive, you'll get like a mosquito bite, like a little wheel on those reactions. And then if you're allergic, you can decide if you want to do allergy shots. You know, there's a lot of promotion about allergy drops. And so you can do allergy drops, you do those at home. The problem with the drops is that right now insurance isn't paying for them, so you have to pay for on your own.